Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. This session discusses about indigenous and external influences with relate to Gandhian economic thought. This entire course is part of the master's program in Gandhian studies. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Welcome to this session. Leaders who contributed to action and thought in the world based on the learning from the thought and practice of the predecessors. Rare is the case where a person works only on own inspiration. Gandhi is no exception. He formulated his economic thought based on his experience, reading and internalization of ideas and values. Gandhi was not a philosopher, but essentially he is a practitioner and reformer. So, it is also necessary to know that there is nothing like a Gandhism, thus there is no dogmatization of thought. Acharya J.B. Kribalini, an astute political intellectual and principal of the Gujarat Vidyapeeth College in mid 1920s, makes this point very clear in his book Gandhian Thought that there was nothing like Gandhism. Isms do not exist with the original thinker. Their followers dogmatize it and make the working principle very rigid. The dogmatized principles then became isms, losing flexibility and the scope to change. Gandhi presented his worldview in his book Hind Swaraj, written in November 1909. In the foreword, he notes, quote, "These views are mine and yet not mine. They are mine because I hope to act according to them. They are almost a part of my being, but yet they are not mine because I lay no claim to originality. They have been formed after reading several books." Unquote. Another important point in this context is that Gandhi's economic thought has appeared on specific economic aspects and policies, which again establishes him more as a practitioner than a theorist. He stands against modern factory manufacturing. His insistence on village industries and spinning wheel, Sudesi, implying boycott of foreign goods, etc., illustrate that he had never thought about economics as a theory building exercise. So, based on this introduction, aim and objective of this lecture was to make our learners and listeners to understand various influences Gandhi had in formulating his economic thoughts and how those influences reflected in his thought. That is the topic of this lecture, indigenous and external influences with regard to economic thoughts of Gandhi. First, let us start with indigenous influence, that is both ethical and spiritual aspects. Already in the previous lecture, we clearly noted that fundamental difference between thinkers of modern economics and their thought and that of Gandhi lies in the Gandhi's emphasis on ethical consideration in all economic affairs. For Gandhi, ethics was so important. We need to understand that ethics was so important in dealing with economic affairs that his vision could almost become a utopia. Ajit Dasgupta in 1997 tells us in his writing that Gandhi was trying to describe an economic idea to strive for rather than simply an economic plan to implement. In that sense, his vision may have been utopian, but in the sense of an idea being non-implementable, his economic thought was not an utopian. His understanding of ethics had evolved from his faith in religion. The second source of influence was from writings of other scholars who wrote commentaries and critique on economic issues and concepts. So, in this section, in this lecture, we will understand and consider indigenous influences. Like for example, Gandhi's understanding of religion was faith in God and soul power in human being. He was against organized religion and various forms of sects and sampradayas. He detested any kind of fundamentalism. He wrote in Young India in July 21, 1920 issue, quote, "I reject any religious doctrine that does not appeal to reason and is in conflict with morality." His concern was not otherworldly. He was very much concerned with these worldly affairs and he wanted everybody to have faith in God and follow one's dharma. His connotation of dharma was performing one's duty selflessly. If an individual performed his or her dharma with all his faith and sincerity, his or her other worldly affairs will be taken care of. Thus, both religion and ethics were very important for Gandhi to run the economic affairs. His parents, actually he learnt all these things from his parents and wife. So, Gandhi got an influence of religion from his early childhood onwards. But in the early childhood, his experiences was more limited to emotional and devotional side. His parents was very much religious and so also his wife Kasturiba. Gandhi was deeply impressed by his religiosity of his parents and wife. He learned from them the capacity to make sankalpa, take oath and stick to the decision. We know that, all of us know that, he promised his mother while leaving for his studies to England that he would keep away from wine, women and non-vegetarian food. He stuck to his determination. In England, he first read Bhagavad Gita. His encounter with different religions and especially Christianity was intense in South Africa. There arose many doubts and he had a friend who was way ahead in individual spiritual practices. His influence on him was very important. The person who drew him to the power of indigenous sources was Rajchandra Ravji Mehta, known also as Srimad Rajchandra. Gandhi corresponded with him regularly and asked him questions and doubts about religion. Rajchandra wrote to him in one of the letters, quote, "Dharma does not mean any particular creed or dogma, nor does it mean reading or learning by books known as Shastras or believing all that they say. Rather, Dharma is a quality of soul present in every human being. Through it, we know our duty in human life, our true relation with other souls." Unquote. Bhagavad Gita and Ishavashya Upanishad had influenced him a great deal. With this inspiration, Gandhi turned modern economics, that is the economic man, into ethical man who gains not by maximizing personal benefits and minimizing personal cost, but by readiness to give and derive pleasure from renunciation and self-indulgence. Gandhi was so much influenced with the, I have mentioned, Ishavashya Upanishad, the first sloka that states that whatever there is changeful in this ephemeral world, all that must be enveloped by the Lord. By this renunciation, support yourself. Don't covet the wealth of anyone. This was given by Swami Sarvananda in 1987. Another important person here, we must note that Kishorilal Mashruwala, a renowned scholar and an inmate of Gandhi Ashram, has provided a brilliant commentary on Gandhi's economic thought. According to him, so deep was the influence of Gita and Upanishads on Gandhi that he visualized Sant Sanskruti, that is the noble civilization. Mashruwala adds that this was not the same as Bhadra Sanskruti, that is the elite civilization. In the Sant Sanskruti, an individual tries to maximize social benefit and minimize social cost. In this civilization, all human beings are equal. There is no stratification of any kind. Another thing here we must note it here that Bhadra Sanskriti, there is inequality among individuals and it is assumed to be natural and hence inevitable. Because of this inequity, brute force and violence are indispensable. The individual in elite civilization maximizes personal benefits and minimizes personal cost. Mashruwala stops here, but we add that in this game, economic man, where individual maximizes benefits and minimizes cost, imposes social cost, and in the present time also an environmental cost that we are seeing now. Gandhi was this influence on religious values moves to create ethical man. Let us see now what he draws from Bhagavad Gita. It says that one who eats food without offering the necessary daily sacrifice was a thief. This sacrifice, yagna, to Gandhi was physical labor. Gujarat Vidyapith, a university founded by Gandhi in 1920, until today has a practice of daily spinning which is known as Yagnartha Kantan, that is the spinning of yagna. Like when we listen this, we could able to understand more about Gandhi's economic thought. So, in December 1916, he responded to Kapil Deva Malavidya's invitation to speak to the members of the Mysore Central College Economic Society, Allahabad, and he delivered the lecture that was titled as "Thus Economics Progress Clash with Real Progress." To the economist who had gathered, he defined real progress as moral progress. He said that by economics progress, I mean material progress without limit, and by real progress we mean moral progress, which again is the same thing as progress of the permanent element in us. That is noted in the Gandhi's collected works in volume 15. For him, the source of moral progress came from the saints who lived life of voluntary poverty all over the world. He had drawn immensely from India. In the lecture that we have referred above, like just now I have mentioned, he quoted from Bible and then he asked, quote, I have not taken the trouble of copying similar passages from the other non-Hindu scriptures, and I will not insult you by quoting in support of the law stated by Jesus passages from writings and sayings of our own sages, passages stronger even if possible than the biblical extracts have drawn your attention to. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Nanak, Kabir, Chaitanya, Shankara, Dayanand, Ramakrishna were men who exercised an immense influence over and molded the character of thousands of men, and they were all men who deliberately embraced poverty as their lot, unquote. So, Gandhi studied and learnt all the religious practices in India in their basic scriptures, be it Quran, Bible, Parsi scriptures. Guru Granth Sahib recognized and dignified physical labor equal to yagna. Then next let us see the indigenous influences that persons. Gopal Krishna Gokhale was Gandhi's political mentor. Gandhi had accepted him as political guru. Both had significant differences in their ideas, both with regard to politics and economics. Gokhale had not thought much of Hind Swaraj, yet both had very good and intense relationship. In the chapter 1 of the Hind Swaraj, some dialogues I would like to mention for our readers and the listeners. Reader, he asked that surely it is not the case. Young India seems to ignore the Congress. It is considered to be an instrument for perpetuating British rule. Here the editor, the Gandhiji, responds to the reader's question. According to him, that opinion is not justified. Had not the grand old man of India prepared the soil, our young man could not have even spoken about home rule. Here the reference made to the grand old man by editor, that editor is Gandhi, is an honorific address to Dadabhai Naoroji. This reflects deep respect to the Naoroji and acceptance of his contribution. Other important external influences here we need to mention here is that Ajit Das Gupta. Ajit Das Gupta in 1997 makes an interesting observation on external influence on Gandhi. He says that, quote, Gandhi borrowed the doctrine, that is bread labor, from Tolstoy, whom he noted had himself taken it over from other Russian writer, but Gandhi also prefers to find roots of the doctrine in Bhagavad Gita, unquote. Jesus Christ's life had made great impact on Gandhiji, and he was highly impressed by the Sermon on the Mount. Gandhi writes in his autobiography, quote, when I came to New Testament, there was different impact. I had very positive influence of Jesus. Sermon on the Mount, I internalized it in my heart, my mind compared it with Gita. My childhood mind integrated Gita, Life of Buddha by Arnold and Jesus' sermons. I was very comfortable in my understanding that religious is in renunciation, unquote. When Gandhi was lecturing in Allahabad in December 1916 in front of economics teachers, he cited an illustration from Christianity. By then, he had a vision of his own that was expressed comprehensively in Hind Swaraj. He said in that lecture that the societies that prospered materially experienced a moral fall. Rome, that is the best example is Rome, suffered a moral fall after it achieved material affluence. The Yadavas ruined themselves morally when they were rolling in richness. Gandhi thought that an ordinary measure of morality is possessed by most, including the very rich, but their material gains did not ensure moral richness. We need to quote the dialogue between Christ, citizen, and other disciples described by St. Mark. Gandhi emphasized in his lecture the virtue of spending wealth in the service of the poor and have-nots. He used illustrations from Christ's life to show that the economics which the West was practicing was against the moral and religious preaching of Christianity. Here Dasgupta in 1997 has provided an illustration on this point. He says that Gandhi condemned exploitation of workers by the capitalist but refused to condemn all businessmen as individuals. In fact, we all know that Gandhi was very close to Birlas and considered Jamna Lal Bajaj from Wardha as his fifth son. Gandhi had said that his relationship with the rich was to continue. He did not look upon rich as wicked and upon poor as angels. Dasgupta further notes that, quote, statements of this kind are consistent with the Buddhist attitude to wealth, which is in sharp contrast to that of the Christian fathers, who could see no possibility of acquiring great richness without resort to evil practices or inheritance from those who had resorted to them, and for this reason called on all Christians to avoid seeking wealth, unquote. This is mentioned in page number 166. Here I would like to mention few more examples how the Gandhi's economic thought evolved over time. The Tolstoy's book How Shall We Escape the Slavery of Our Own Times and the First Step mainly contain criticism of industrial civilization. Interestingly, these books Tolstoy, besides raising the issue of exploitation of labor, disgrace peasants, mentioned about rampant consumerism in modern life. This was mentioned by the Parel in 1997. It is clear that Gandhi had internalized most of the criticism by the time he wrote Hind Swaraj. His idea of limiting wants and leading ethical life with bread labor shows the influence of Tolstoy's ideas. No surprise that Gandhi very much wanted Tolstoy to take a close look at his Hind Swaraj. Another important person whose writings had a very deep influence on Gandhi's economic philosophy was John Ruskin. This already I have mentioned about him in my previous lecture. From the list that is given in Hind Swaraj, one can learn that Gandhi must have read many more authors who had developed critiques of new industrial and modern civilization, but Ruskin made a deep impact. It should be mentioned here that another person who had a deep influence on Gandhi's thinking on economics was Henry Pollack, a contemporary Gandhi in South Africa. He gave Ruskin's Unto This Last to Gandhi to read. Most of you would know, if you have read Gandhi's autobiography, that Gandhi read this book in an overnight train journey. He wrote that once picked up to read, he could not keep the book down. An important characteristic of Gandhi was that if he was convinced of an idea, he would put it in practice. In case 2, Gandhi formed his economics first on the ground, then formulated the thought. Like in a coming lectures, we are discussing more about Ruskin's impact on Gandhi's economic thought, but even at the risk of repeating, we are introducing here Gandhi's economic learning from the book. Gandhi in his autobiography has summarized following 3 points that we all must need to understand that. First one is that the good of the individual is contained in the good of all, that the lawyer's work has the same value as the barber's, is in as much as all have the same right of earning their livelihood from their work, that a life of labor, that is the life of the tiller of the soil and the handicraftsman, is the life of worth living. Gandhi published Unto This Last in Indian Opinion, serializing its 9 parts. Later he published a pamphlet and titled as Sarvodaya. It should be clear by now as to why Gandhi had not agreed with Bentham and Mill's concept of welfare, where greatest good of greatest number was the formula. Ruskin guided him to reach the concept of all, that is Sarvodaya. Here our learners and listeners, you need to appreciate that the Sarvodaya movement, which was initiated after Gandhi's death, has its foundation in its concept of unto this last. Gandhi has clearly explained that the decentralized village and cottage industry, bread labor, agriculture based economy and rural culture all became cornerstones of Gandhi's economic thought, and we can readily see this, that they had their basis in Ruskin's principles. We have to here noted that Gandhi also observed supplementary ideas from others to complete his vision of economic system that was non-violent and guaranteed distributive justice. The important among these works were Henry Sumner Main's classic village communities. Main, with his in-depth study of village in different continents, analyzed special features and their strengths and weakness. In the case of India, he observed that villages were representative institutions. Village council, or what we knew then as now as panchayat, enjoyed quasi-judicial and quasi-legislative powers. Gandhi in his rural economic system propounded individual and family life as per Ruskin's and Tolstoy's concepts of work and wages, and for community life he suggested restoration of village councils with power. So here our learners and readers, we must note that the foreign influence on Gandhi was deep with respect to economic thought, that number of persons influencing were not many, but few influenced his thought significantly. But we should also remember that He, with the help of those thoughts, formulated his own original thought. So, we have taken this lecture and prepared this lecture and this unit based on these references. If any of our readers, any of our learners and listeners, if you would like to know more about this topic, you can very well refer these books and you can learn further. So, basically this lecture has described in some detail ideas and persons influenced Gandhi. We have shown that influences came both from within India and outside. It is evident from this lecture that the Gandhi drew his basic strength from Indian sources such as Vedas, Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. He was influenced by saints who lived in India from time to time. For political thought and action, Gandhi has given credit to Gopalakrishna Gokhale as his guide. Two more persons' writings influence in shaping Gandhi's economic thought were Dadabhai Naoroji and R.C. Dutt. So, we have also seen in this lecture that Gandhi was influenced by the Christian thought as well. The concept of voluntary poverty appears to have come from life and discourses of Jesus. The writings of Tolstoy, Ruskin are two more important influences on Gandhi in the formulation of economic philosophy. It is shown that Gandhi was influenced by many persons and thoughts, but he formulated his own thoughts by seeking roots in the Indian sources and culture. Hope all of you, our learners and listeners, understood who had great influence on Gandhi to formulate his own economic thought. Thank you.